What's good, everybody? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson here on the Kinganda channel. Glad you're able to join in with us today. I have a very special guest. I'm a big fan of this brother. He is a very powerful brother, one of our great teachers and intellectuals of today, Dr. Joseph Mbele PHD. I will let him explain who he is and what he focuses on here for his content.
Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Mbele. I'm a Tanzanian. I was born in southern Tanzania in a rural place. Cut a long story short, I went to school there all the way through university, University of Dar es Salaam. I was there from 1973 to 76. And when I graduated, I was hired to teach there. So I started teaching there in the literature department from 1976. A few years later, 5 years later, I came to the University of Wisconsin in Madison to do my PhD in African literatures, with a particular emphasis on folklore, things like traditional storytelling and songs and things, and the customs involved. I then graduated here 1986. I went back to the University of Dar es Salaam, taught for 5 years, and was recruited by this American college, St. Olaf College. And that's where I've been since 1991. I was recruited to teach what you might call global literatures in English. So I'm here. And the second part of your question, I'm very interested in the kinds of things that the Kinganda program, the Kinganda channel is involved in, especially in the last few weeks. I'm following the story of African Americans who are relocating to Africa. I'm following it very closely, their dreams, the challenges, what they say about Africa. And that's where I am right now. I'm very passionate about trying to do something to help them, because I know many of them, really intend to move out of the USA. And they intend to integrate into the African,
society.
Yeah.
And hopefully you will be here in this part of the Africa. Hopefully we can bring you in to teach us some more stuff, and give him a round of applause, editors. He's written several books on the subject, but I've been intrigued by your content even before you commented on our videos, or realized you were commenting. And I've noticed that a lot of people have chosen your home country, Tanzania, especially from the African American diaspora and some of the people from the Caribbean and British diaspora. They have decided to, and I believe it was because of the 2020 COVID ease of travel towards Dar es Salaam, Tanzania as a country. And many people are there. We talked about Brother Mark Meets Africa before we started, and he was one of those people who went. But a lot of African Americans are struggling in Tanzania. And I want your personal explanation, since you are from there and you're very familiar with African Americans living in the States for the last 30 years. What's the problem that we are facing in Tanzania?
It's a big question, and I appreciate the fact that you are giving me plenty of latitude. There is a history. Tanzania became independent 1961. And as soon as we became independent, our first president, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, distinguished himself as a supporter of liberation movements across the world. We became the base for liberation movements, from Southern Africa and other parts of Africa. We hosted exiles, refugees, fighters of different organizations like, ANC of South Africa, PAC of South Africa, Frelimo, MPLA of Angola, SWAPO of Namibia. We went across Africa supporting liberation movements. And in terms of the USA, we had the issues that Black Americans faced, the Black Panthers. Many of them had to flee the United States, and we hosted a lot of Black Panthers in Tanzania. So we need to start a little bit, that way before the present time. Tanzania has been a host to these types of people. In fact, there is a Black Panther who is still in Tanzania. He cannot come to the USA because there are pending charges against him. If you Google a panther in Africa, you'll see a YouTube video of it's a documentary of this person and his family. They live in Arusha. And many African Americans here in the US actually know about this story of the Black Panther that's there, in Tanzania. Also, the influence of our first president, Julius Nyerere, he was so inspiring with his policies of ujamaa, a form of African socialism. He just excited the imagination of a lot of people across the world, including African Americans, absolutely. And they adored him. I remember when I was a student at the University of Dar es Salaam, as I've said, from 1973, we used to have African Americans coming there, African American leaders, activists. I remember people like the poet Nikki Giovanni. She visited the university. I was an undergraduate student there.
Wow.
People like Angela Davis. I remember. I think I was a first-year student or second-year student.
She was in Tanzania also.
Yes.
Wow.
At the university, she gave a talk there. I remember the day.
Wow.
I mean, there was this tall woman with a big afro. So, so there are all these factors, and there were African Americans coming and going and talking to us, and we used to be very well informed as a result of interacting with them, and we just got used to them. So, and then if I fast forward a little bit, the time of the late President Magufuli,
yes,
when the whole world was, not exactly the whole world, much of the world was locked down, Magufuli refused to lock down our country. You know that probably. And so that alone attracted a lot of African Americans. Also, Magufuli's defiance, of the West and whoever wanted to control us and whoever wanted to control our resources. Magufuli was a very stubborn kind of person in that sense. And African Americans read that as an anti-white stance. And they loved Magufuli because he was opposing white power, white supremacy. You know how African Americans talk about this kind of thing.
Right.
Many of them came to Tanzania. Now we are talking about recent times.
Yes.
It was a country where you were not constrained by COVID and things like that. And there were YouTubers, African Americans who used to say that, oh, I'm here in Tanzania, it's all free, we're not wearing masks,
Right.
That was, again, another thing that attracted people to our country. So, yeah, there are all these things. And, and now you have people like Mark. Oh, yeah.
Mark East Africa.
Exactly. And there are many of them there. And, what do they post? I think continues to, attract, more and more people from here.
Okay.
Yeah, in brief, that's what I would say. But if we go to the level of the continent as such,
Sure.
we need to go back more than 100 years. I mean, hundreds of years actually, because Africans who were taken from the continent forcibly against their will, okay, and brought to the US to be enslaved, they always wanted, they dreamt about, or they wanted to go back to Africa. They didn't have the means to go back, but the dream was there. The desire was there. They hated
Mm-hmm.
being away from home from
Mm-hmm.
the first days of
Mm-hmm.
slavery. You know, I mean, there are stories like that. There are beliefs about being able to fly home. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
folklorist. I study those things. The
Right.
sentiments were always there of returning to Africa. And
Mm-hmm.
then you fast forward to the last part of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. You have people like Marcus Garvey now,
Right.
the great Jamaican leader who actually mobilized, people around the idea of returning to Africa, and he
Mm-hmm.
did something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before that, you have also the African American freed slaves. I mean, freed African Americans who returned, went to Liberia.
Liberia, Sierra Leone.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
They went and settled there, and
Right.
they have been there in other parts of the continent. And then we come to Marcus Garvey, and
Mm-hmm.
after Marcus Garvey, a lot of things have happened. You have
Mm-hmm.
to talk about people like W. Du Bois, who
Mm-hmm.
was very much
Got it.
part of the struggle,
Sure.
working in tandem with people like Kwame Nkrumah, and he
Mm-hmm.
actually moved and spent his last years in Ghana,
Got it. Got it.
buried there.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go around the continent and in history, we have this big picture now.
Big picture. Okay. And I'm glad you put that into perspective, especially with Frelimo and other groups that were trained in Tanzania, especially in the struggle and in the history that Tanzania has with African Americans, even letting the Black Panthers come and stay there, not extraditing them. So now we see the bond there, especially with Magufuli in 2020. Now, you've written about this and you have a lot of content about this on your channel, about the struggles that either African Americans are having getting into rhythm in Africa,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even people like yourself who've been educated in the West
yeah,
and have found out that things may have changed a
yeah.
little bit.
That's a
Going
great
back to
question.
your, what are the problems that we're
Yeah,
facing
that's a
as
very
people?
that's a very important question, and I think we are now hitting the bull's eye. Absolutely, and that's really the thing that has kept me so focused on this phenomenon. Um, as I've said, the desire to go back to Africa has always been there among African Americans. It continues today. And a lot of the African Americans who speak about it, they will tell you, or they will tell us, we are tired of the racism in the USA. Yes, that's one issue. We are tired of the racism. And one can understand and one needs to sympathize with that. Um, but then they also say, we have this opportunity to go back to the motherland. That's our home. That's another argument. And frankly think it's a very solid argument because we know, as I said earlier, uh, Africans were taken out there forcibly. They were kidnapped, taken out forcibly against their
Yeah.
will. So
Mm-hmm.
if those, say that we want to return to our continent,
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me, I will say, of course, it's
Right.
up to Africa now to make it possible and to welcome them. That's what I'm focusing on.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
yeah. However, what
Mm-hmm.
I've also been focusing on is it's not as easy as just packing your bags today and tomorrow you are in the plane landing in
Mm-hmm.
Zimbabwe or Tanzania or Ghana.
Right.
Because the 400 years of separation, you know,
Mm.
Africa has evolved in its own way. It has had a historical experience which is
Mm-hmm.
different from the historical experience of African Americans in America.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of just going there and fitting in. There's a lot of homework
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be done before you leave. And that is one of the things I'm really focusing on now, to
Mm-hmm.
prepare people psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and so on, so they know what kind of place Africa is. Because, as you suggested,
When you say homework,
go ahead.
mm-hmm.
You
When
suggested,
you say homework,
uh-huh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Continue.
You said
Continue. No, it's fine. What were you
you
saying?
actually alluded to the idea of challenges. You alluded to the idea of
Mm-hmm.
challenges. And that is exactly what I have in mind. They need to do their homework so that when they go to Tanzania, like many of them have done, or they go to Ghana, they should not end up in the kind of situations that they are talking about now. Oh, we didn't know this. We have this challenge. We have this challenge. Let me stop there for now.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
because I've noticed, the East African community is doing a great job in comparisons to, I think, no disrespect to ECOWAS or anything like that, but I think that the East Africa community is, with trade and things, there seems to be a little bit more harmony going on there from what I can see. But now I've noticed something, even though Tanzania and Kenya and Uganda and even Rwanda, there are some level of similarities between the four countries. They are very much different from one another. Even Tanzania and Kenya, which both can speak Swahili fairly well, they're different countries for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now, and there is not a lot of, let's say, transparent information about how to be. There's no real blueprint on this. So there's a lot of difference of opinion on what actually you need to do to do very well, coming from, let's say, for example, the African American community or Caribbean community into Tanzania. It's different if it's somebody like yourself who you were born there.
Yeah.
You have some connections there.
Yeah.
But you said homework. Where do you find the right information to begin with, in your honest opinion?
Yes.
To start.
Honest opinion. I like that. I have worked, let me say, for all the years I've been here in the USA teaching, 32 years now. I've been involved in helping Americans prepare, for trips or for study or whatever it is in Africa, giving them cultural orientation. I have done this for many years, Americans of all types. And as a result, I actually wrote this book. This is my first book. It's a very powerful resource. Everybody who has read it, if they are watching this show, they will tell you that. It puts together my thoughts about the cultural differences. For me, that's the crux of the matter, cultural differences. And so this book, Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences, I could tell you there are thousands and thousands of Americans who have read it, and they find it to be extremely valuable. Some very prominent Americans, they've actually written about this. One of them calls it a tool of survival for Americans going to Africa. That's the word.
You've written the book on it.
This is the book, a tool of survival. And the person who said so is actually the son of the great writer Ernest Hemingway. His son is a friend of mine. And this son is an old man now. He's about 95 years. 95 years old. He lived in Tanzania in his adult years for 25 years. So he knows Africans. And so he's one of my greatest fans. He loves this book. He calls it a tool of survival for Americans. So that gets to your question about what kind of preparation, am I talking about? And you told me to give an honest opinion. I have done my homework. I know the challenges Americans face in Africa because I've lived with Americans for many, many years, and therefore I know their culture. I know the
Uh-huh.
way they communicate. I know the way they think. I know the way they act. And I know how to interpret American behavior in that sense. But also, I'm an African. And so I know how Africans communicate, how they act, how they behave, how they think. And I can see, the clashes that happen
Okay.
before they even happen. When I take
Okay.
a group of Americans to Africa, I already know what things to tell them in order to avoid, the conflicts.
Okay.
I already know how to bridge the gap.
Right.
So I have the knowledge of both the African culture and the American culture. That's
Okay.
why, people appreciate what I do. I mean,
Okay.
they appreciate what I say to them, because
Right.
when Americans go into Africa, they realize what I told them was actually not, some fiction.
Okay.
It was not some fiction.
Okay.
So I'm very happy about it. That's why I'm more and more inspired. And
Right.
that's why I told you I'm following this movement now of African Americans very closely. And recently I wrote a sequel to that book. I published this one 2 years ago
Chickens in the bus.
as a follow-up. Chickens in the Bus, more thoughts on cultural differences.
Okay.
I decided to choose this funny title, but there's one, it's a collection of essays, little
Okay.
essays. So, and then I'm not even done with that, because a few days ago, I completed a course, an online course specifically for African Americans going to Africa. An online course with the text, and video. And I'm using the kind of materials I've already produced in the past, which people would say, are very, very valuable.
Okay.
And I've added some more stuff. And it's a course that's available online.
Okay.
So when I listen to these YouTubers, African American YouTubers, and they're complaining, we were in Ghana here, and this thing is happening, we can't stand it here. And so they try to move to another African country. You must have seen some of those YouTubers.
Oh, of course.
We are in Tanzania, now we need to move. We can't handle this, we're going to another African country. I pity those people, because they don't know how similar, African culture
is
from across the continent. All they had to do was read this. They wouldn't have to hop from one country to another.
Okay.
For example, I can give you some real examples here. They will say, "Oh, I was in Tanzania. I'm an African American, and that some Tanzanians call me Mzungu. I don't like that.
Okay.
Mzungu means white person.
Sure.
So you see, you go to YouTube and you see an African American complaining bitterly, and you can't blame them that some Tanzanians called them Mzungu. So they're packing their bags and they go to Ghana. My friend,
called Bruni.
Bruni.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And I write about it here. Africans do that and why they do that. And it's so elaborate. And so if somebody had read this, they wouldn't have to run away from one African country to another only to find the same issue. Or one more example and I will stop.
Okay.
Africans, like in the marketplace. Oh, I'm here in Tanzania. Whenever I go to the market, they charge me very high prices. I'm moving to another country. The thing is, you need to understand the dynamics of the African marketplace. It's not a matter of just buying things and going home.
Yes.
It's a place where there's a lot of socializing, getting to know each other, and joking and haggling over the price, and establishing relationships. And those are the things I say here. So you don't have to jump from one African country to another because they always charge you a high price. First of all, when the African vendor tells you this thing is like 10,000 shillings, say in Tanzania, or 10 cedis in Ghana, they don't mean it, seriously. They just mentioning that price, expecting some kind of haggling, a lot of haggling perhaps. So
Oh,
African Americans need to do this kind of homework. That's what I mean. And there are many, many other things. But this is,
yeah.
as you say, from my YouTube channel, and I'm telling you now, my books here, I'm focused on this and the cause I've created. I see no reason for a lot of the frustrations that people articulate. No reason whatsoever.
Okay. Let me also point to this part, because I see that a lot of people are having issues. Obviously coming to Uganda like myself, there's not going to be a lot of job opportunities. And then so you could even think about, I was in Tanzania once and I was surprised that there was hardly no English being spoken almost anywhere. It was all Swahili, which I was lost. Uganda and Kenya was much more English.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
but Tanzania was much more traditional to its roots, as far as leading with its own home language first, just like you
Yeah.
would see in Poland with Polish or
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah, that is true.
So when you were to, a lot of our people have never ran businesses or don't know how it works. So when they get there,
Yeah.
they're struggling,
Yeah.
trying to get into the economy or bring something new to the economy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the homework, and then I'm going to ask you something about government procedures. But what's going on here, in your honest opinion?
Yeah.
From an intellectual perspective,
Yeah.
about the diaspora having issues generating money in the economy that will allow them to stay there and reinvest there.
Exactly. What homework you're asking, and that's a powerful question. Very important question. In my presentations, and even in this little book, Chickens in the Bus, I have a whole little article about business. And the thing is this: you may do business in America, you're an American, you may do business here, a flourishing business. You know how business is done. Okay, and then you pack your bags and your money, you begin a business in Africa, Tanzania, for example, or Ghana. And you have those challenges, as you say, you have those struggles, as you say. The thing that needs to be done, the homework that needs to be done, is exactly what I'm suggesting in my presentations, where I say that business is actually an integral part of a culture. There's no such thing as business in the abstract. So Americans do business the American way. It's part of American culture. And Africans do business the African way. There's an African way of doing business, which is a part of the African culture. Just like I've suggested here. You go to the market. Here in America, you go to the store, you go to buy things and go home. But in Africa, and first of all, Africa has been doing business for thousands of years. For thousands of years, Africans were doing business. They were trading across the Sahara, for example. West Africans and North Africans, across the Sahara, East Africa, long distance trade from Zanzibar into the interior, Congo, and so on. They're selling ivory, buying ivory, things like that. There is a whole tradition of business in Africa that continues. You go to the African market, you will see how business is done the African way. As I've suggested, there's negotiation, there's haggling, there's all kinds of things. So those are the kinds of things I have in mind when I talk about homework. How do you do business in Africa? It is very much to do with the relationships. Yes, your number one priority is to establish relationships. Africans have a different concept of time. Lending and borrowing works differently. paying and repaying debts works differently. And I talk about these things even here in my first book, Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences, to understand that setting up a business in Africa is different from setting up a business here in the USA. You have to be knowledgeable about the culture. You don't assume that what you know about business in America will help you all over the world.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things. And as I say, I'm really focused on offering real solutions, because it pains me when I see these YouTubers say what you have just said here. They are struggling to do a business, it's not going anywhere. Like I say, as an African American, I get charged very high prices, and so my money disappears very fast. And I sympathize with these people. Being part of that culture and then learning how to do business within that culture.
Okay.
That's the homework.
Okay. It's a great response. Let me ask you a question before I get into another question about governments and what they should do to ease restrictions for the diaspora.
Yeah.
But I see people are choosing several countries that just stick out.
Yeah.
Ghana,
Yeah.
Tanzania,
Yeah.
Kenya,
Yeah.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Nigeria seems to be a place for the Nigerian diaspora. I don't really see a lot of people from other, but I see these people who've never been to Africa or don't have any lineage there, or maybe not lineage, but let me say history in their family there, choosing these 4 places. Do you believe that Tanzania is more difficult than Kenya or more difficult Ghana as far as maybe running a business because it is primarily in Swahili?
That's a great question and a great point. It is a fact. The language barrier is there in Tanzania. People generally or naturally converse in Swahili. In that sense, it's easier in the English-speaking countries. But we have also our own advantages in Tanzania. In terms of the people being, very friendly, generally speaking, we are known as people, who are very humble, generally, I say, generally. The problem is this. Even if you don't know English, even if you don't know Swahili, you just need to learn to connect with the people. Don't stay away from them. Don't hang out with fellow expatriates, because if you do that, you are separating yourself from the local Tanzanians, and they will treat you as a foreigner. They will keep charging you the mzungu prices, those kinds of things. You'll be trapped in your, in your space as a foreigner, and find ways to make friends. They will embrace you. They will deal with you even with their limited English. And you pick up Swahili. They love it when you can say a few words of Swahili and then a few more words. You really charm them if you try to do those things. So the barrier we are talking about is not insurmountable. It is not. If you have the right attitude, the willingness to connect with the people, Tanzanians really love to connect with everybody. We don't have what other countries in Africa have, in terms of ethnic, rivalries. I don't like the word tribe, but let me just use it. We don't have tribalism. We don't have, So those are the benefits of Tanzania, that we are people who really just want to connect with anybody. Yeah, we want to connect with anybody. In fact, that takes us to another level where, as a country, from the first days of our independence, this idea of connecting with everybody was ingrained in us by our first president. there was a saying, a mantra that all human beings are like my brothers and sisters,
Okay.
and Africa is one. So we do
Mhm.
not care whether you are white or black or whatever. We were brought up with the idea that all human beings, in Swahili we say, binadamu wote ni ndugu zangu. All human beings are like my relatives.
Mhm.
Can you imagine? So African Americans find this to be problematic because they see Tanzanians being, very friendly to white people,
Sure.
and African Americans, again, I'm using the YouTubers, as my source.
Mhm.
They will
Mhm.
say, they think the Africans are a bit naive, or the Tanzanians are naive. They don't know the white man,
Is that true?
I don't think so. We have been with
Don't think so.
white people more than 150 years. Remember, they
Mhm.
came in as missionaries, whatever they call themselves, missionaries, as
Mhm.
colonizers from the Germans, and so on and so on. We have lived with them, and then they've come in other roles. We have our own experience with white people. Our
Mhm.
own experience with white people. It was not the
Mhm.
experience of slaves. Of course, there was colonialism with all the problems, and we can talk about this. We can have a whole program about it.
Mhm.
African attitudes towards white people, that will be a big issue too. And it is there in my cause, actually. It is there even in this book. So what I'm saying is this.
Mhm.
African Americans coming into Tanzania,
Mhm.
uh, if they reach out to someone like me, for example, who has studied these issues, I could
Mhm.
guide them in terms of, how to navigate this or that or the other thing.
But there's gonna be a problem there. Let me tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna push back on some of the things you've said.
Yeah.
Firstly, you said one of the issues that African Americans have is to integrate, not stick amongst themselves, and sort of integrate maybe more or less with the local crowd.
Yes.
Here's going to be a big issue though.
Uh-huh.
Firstly, this podcast that we have on our thing here, we do have Africans that have helped us,
Mm-hmm.
but we noticed very quickly, at least for me,
Yeah.
we had to separate a little bit, a certain part as a diaspora to ourselves to try to build this thing up, because it was going to be very difficult doing things the way, and this is no offense, the way that Ugandans and Ugandan business people see things. It
Uh-huh.
was much different from
Uh-huh.
how we see things.
Uh-huh.
And we found out that it was a lot of people wanted us to beg them. We found out that people were not understanding our vision with the
Uh-huh.
channel, and we
Uh-huh.
found that we were being stalled out,
Uh-huh.
and the progress was too slow.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what we had to do at that point was
Yeah.
to deny, and we could still love these particular people.
Yeah.
Some of them obviously middlemen and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody in Africa is thinking like this, but this was the barrier I was reaching across.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very difficult to do things.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. Yeah.
saw how business works different from me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
diaspora had to come together in this country and say,
Yeah.
we need to put this podcast out for our group, which is the
Yep.
reason why you're here today.
Yep.
And that
Yeah.
sped up the progress significantly.
Yeah.
Secondly, I will
Yeah.
also say, if Tanzanians have the position, which I think a lot of Africans do, that whites are okay, that is also going to be a big issue.
It is. I know.
It's going to be a big issue. So
It
it's going to be
upsets,
hard to integrate with people
it upsets African
who
Americans.
don't think like us, when we know that, and we love Magufuli.
Yeah.
We know that Magufuli knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And we think that these people killed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from the jump, it's going to be very difficult to say, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, very much so. Very much. It's
Correct.
going to be difficult, disappointing, and frustrating for African Americans. Yes. So in terms of the white, people thing.
Because
But
whenever
let me
white people are there, they want to. Let me just say something,
Mhm.
Doctor.
Mhm.
There's no white person cleaning houses in Tanzania.
Uh-huh.
There's not one white missionary cleaning houses for Tanzania.
Uh-huh.
We know this. This is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
white people
Yeah.
interact with blacks,
Yeah. Yeah.
they never interact when
Yeah.
they don't rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
That's a
there's
good
one white
question.
person cleaning houses in
Yeah.
Dar es Salaam or Arusha, then
Yeah.
I will listen. I will give you $1,000 if you can find this person. I guarantee you cannot find it. Whenever whites interact with blacks or Africans, they always run everything. That's the big problem that we have.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you are articulating this thing the way you are, so that our listeners, especially African listeners, can hear your perspective. And the insight you bring into this, the question you have posed is powerful. Where have you seen a white person cleaning offices? This is a powerful question. It will resonate with Africans. I'm happy you are posing it this way. It will make them think. Because we have taken, maybe it seems we have taken things for granted. We just going with the flow of things, and have not done that kind of careful thinking about what we are doing. So I appreciate that. I don't speak for the Africans, but I'm a person who really appreciates new ideas.
Okay.
New ways of looking at reality. Okay. But let me go back to your initial question.
Sure.
African Americans trying to do business with Ugandans or with Africans. You're talking about the slow pace of doing things, for example. Very concrete issue. And that's exactly what I had in mind when I said there's an American way of doing things where, for example, you have deadlines, you have schedules, you have this. When you say 10 o'clock, it is 10 o'clock. When it is, 2 weeks deadline, it's a 2 weeks deadline. And then you come with that mindset to Tanzania or Uganda, you will be frustrated. Guess what? The homework I was talking about involves understanding yourself as an American. And in the course I've developed, that is the number one theme. Understand yourself. And for African Americans, that means really look into yourself and begin to learn, begin to understand, begin to appreciate that you are an American. And the things you have said, therefore, the speed with which work is done, punctuality and the deadlines and things, those are American things.
Yes.
So but then you look at the Africans, and as you have said very correctly, you get frustrated by the way they do things. Now, my role there is to help you understand the Africans, because we are not focused on timelines and deadlines and being on time and things like that. We are focused on relationships.
Okay.
We are a people-oriented culture.
Okay. That's true.
In America, you are task-oriented. The task has to be performed. You run to be on time. Somewhere there's a schedule here, there's a schedule there. Africans will not do that. As they are going to the place of work or the place of the meeting, they meet Kenganda on the way. Oh yeah, they have conversation.
Yes.
Because you matter more than the schedule. You matter more than that deadline. Look here, when you and I were organizing to meet today, you kept apologizing. You kept saying, "Oh, I'll be late a little bit. Oh, I'll be late." That's the American in you, and I was smiling to myself.
Let me just say this. And again, you're a PhD, and you're an elder in the space. You have more knowledge than me. I'm a peon when it comes to you, when it comes to what you have been able to accomplish in your career. And I'm thankful for you. Hopefully you'll come here. But I want to talk about the problems that I've had personally. And one of the issues is that, yes, the one thing I like about Uganda, and I think that's very similar to Tanzania or Kenya, people tend to be more. I think Kenya's maybe a little bit more advanced than both countries as far as the business sector, private sector, things like that. I think Kenya is doing very well.
That's true.
So one of the problems is that when you're in business and you want to collaborate with people who are people-oriented and not task-oriented, you can't do business with those people. It's the truth. I'm just going to be honest. It's very difficult. The reason is, let me tell you this, Doc. I have found myself, and I'm a person that's not what I would consider a beggar. If I don't have the money, I won't do it. But I found myself trying to do things where, and I've noticed that a lot of business people here, not just in this country I've done it with, but they would love you to beg them. Call me back.
Okay.
I'll call you back. And you find yourself chasing these people all of the time. And I don't know if that is the culture where, I'm going to be honest, I feel that a lot of business people in Africa feel, at least that I have met, this is not everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody has to chase me or suffer in order for me to do very well. That's kind of what I feel when it comes to collaborations here.
I see.
And I think it's a lot of Americans feel that, African Americans feel that same way. So now I need to go through all of this bureaucracy and all of this, which I would consider partly buffoonery, to do something with you that more likely will benefit you also. I'm a paying person. I'm willing to bring, and here you go with and they will lie and tell you, we can do this. And then you find out that these are people who are representing American brands. Like, let me give an example. Let's say somebody like Hennessy in Uganda. I've never worked with them. I'll give you an example. That person will run that corporation as a people-oriented organization, when in fact in America it is task-oriented. So in order to do something with them, they will be, and I'm not saying this is Hennessy in Uganda, I'm just giving an example. And you find out that, okay, I'm better off doing this. Let us suffer doing it by ourselves. And I think this is what you find out with every group that's successful here. Indians, Chinese. The Chinese do very well in Africa because of what? Speed. There's a lot of bureaucracy. When they want to give loans, it's speed. They come in and they do things speed. What we're telling African Americans is, you're there, you need to become more people-oriented, not as task-oriented, understand this. And the reasons is that it doesn't, and for me, it works a little bit, but when things need to be done, it doesn't work. This channel here that we're on now is task oriented, and it is people oriented because that's the truth. But it needs to be more of a blend of both. And I find myself in the private sector being held back or boggled up. And things can't get to until the point I said, let's not even work with the private sector. Let us reach out to our people in the diaspora, and then we will do this. Let's be professional. And guess what? Channels started really growing. We used to get held up in farms, people not showing up. And so the thing is that I think it could be a disservice when we tell our people, listen, when you become, it's great to be people oriented, and that's great. I love it. I go to festivals here. I have a great time. I will never live anywhere else. But now, everybody that's doing good in the world is the level of task orientation. Look at Rwanda, look at Germany, look at Japan. I mean, that's something we can't get around. These people have more productivity. So when we ask our people to be involved in that, I find out that it doesn't work. What do you say to that?
Great. That's a great question. What I will say, and in fact, you have already said it. When you said something about how do we blend these two things, these two traditions. That is the thing. We need to realize there will be a process of blending, finding a middle ground, because the Africans need to know that there is an American way of doing things that Americans bring with them. And the Americans need to know we are going into a place where those people have their own way of doing things.
Absolutely.
So conversations and mutual learning has to be part of it. And so you are there now. I consider you the pioneers. You are the ones who are going, to cut down the forests, to make it, to establish the framework, the ground. Maybe our children will actually be there, where we want them to. We want everything to be.
I understand.
Where both sides now will have made the compromises and the blending, and it's a process. I mean, I must say, the beginning is tough. Like you say, plenty of frustrations. There is also something called culture shock. There is culture shock. When you go into another culture, you have to deal with that. There are many manifestations of it. I think what you are doing now is establishing the groundwork. And patience is the key. As time goes, you will discover, the benefits of doing this this way, the benefits of doing this the other way. In my books, I make it very clear that there are things in the American culture that Africans better learn, but I also make it clear that there are things in the African culture that Americans better learn. I'm one of the people who really think about, blending the cultures, or finding common grounds, understanding the differences, respecting the differences, but also finding ways to function with those differences, to leverage those differences. I'll use that word. So the African tradition of being very communalistic, of being very concerned about relationships, should not be abandoned, because
No.
it keeps us human and sane. Africans continue to be sane with their culture, but here in America, they are running to achieve this, and it's a materialistic culture, and it's driving them crazy.
I agree.
Uh-huh.
I agree. 100%.
So the American way provides efficiency in pursuit of material things. And the people who make those things, the capitalist corporations, they make sure they've indoctrinated you into hard work and being on time and doing.
Yes.
And so it's like a slave plantation. Somebody was saying, an African American friend of mine keeps teasing me that I'm working on a slave plantation. Okay. I think it is so funny the way she says it. I've never met her. We just meet online.
Okay.
And I'll make sure to share with her this broadcast so she can have a good laugh, because she tells me, yes, I have a job, I'm employed, but I should remember I'm on the plantation. And so I better think of ways to be on my own, which is great. Anyway, back to your point. It's a great point you are raising, and I'm really happy we are talking about it. But my view is the African Americans who are coming into Africa, they are pioneers. They will face this hardship of having to confront a different culture with the frustrations, but slowly to learn, give and take. And the Africans need plenty of opportunity to understand American ways. That's the work I do. In fact, when I'm in Tanzania, like last year, I spoke to the African Americans in Arusha.
Sure.
On this topic, cultural challenges, I did in Arusha. They want me to speak to them again. They know I'm coming. So I will be talking.
When will you be there in Arusha? Is it in August?
I'm going to be in Arusha this month, in the middle of this month. Maybe 15th or 16th, I'll be in Arusha. And I'll speak to them again. So they want to learn. They want to learn from me. And I want to be there for them, because I'm really concerned. These people have invested their life savings, their dreams. They've quit this country. They want to plant their seeds in Africa. Those types of people, I want to work with them. I mean, first of all, not all African Americans want to quit the US and go to Africa.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
So we are talking about those ones who have thought about this and seriously want to make the move. And I'm dealing with those ones. Oh yeah, there are many African Americans here who have been indoctrinated into the belief that Africa is terrible. Don't even go there. And there are some who say, America is my country. We built America. My grandparents built it. I need to be here and reclaim my rights. I have a right to be here. And I support those ones too. They have a point as well.
Me too. Also,
yeah,
I'm not against those people. They're still our people. So
we are together on that.
We still all work together, depending on whether you want. But I do want to say I've heard, and this is something that I sort of disagree with. As a diaspora, we leave ourselves vulnerable when we, let's say, try to integrate so fast into the new environment, when we have to be honest. As Africans, we are all Africans, right? We are all African descent.
Yeah.
But we are still different. We're different. The world different. Even somebody from the north of Uganda and the central are different in the same country. In the same country. So now when I hear that, I hear like and here in Uganda, our diaspora is a little different. You have some, it's not as big as in Ghana or Tanzania or South Africa, but we have British Caribbeans, we have Ugandan Americans, we have some African Americans, and we run almost in the same circles. If it wasn't for that circle, we would be in a lot of trouble here.
Okay.
A lot of trouble.
Oh.
We feel like we would be maybe taken advantage of a little bit more than what some people are in some countries. But that circle and that transparency has made it even better with I would say with the locals that can help us, because they know we're going to pay them, they know we can work with them, and we can support their industries, we can support their businesses and things like that. And people have some level of respect for us. I think that when I look at the other groups that are doing good here, the Indians, the Lebanese, and I'm not trying to say, but similarly, these people are coming there with some level of skill, with some level of industry, and obviously the difference is with Indians, they're not going to reinvest into Africa at all, or the diaspora. Whereas with us, when we do very well, we're able to bring our people up or things like that. But I think that, again, what I've seen from the private sector, in a lot of parts of the industries, there's not a lot of reinvesting into these businesses. There's not a lot of paying people on time in these businesses. And as much as Africa is communal when it comes to the society, and it comes to sharing, when it comes to business, that communal mentality, in my opinion, goes out the window. When it comes to paying people on time and being transparent, now we're not communal anymore. I'm just going to be honest from what I see. Now we're lying. Come to my office and pay me. Now we're not telling the truth, right? And Africans are frustrated. I talk to so many Africans from Uganda in Waltham or Boston or London, and they're trying to send money here to do things, and they're frustrated. And because of these things that we're talking about, and I'm putting myself out here today. I usually don't talk about these things in this great detail. But then we have a culture of, in the Black world in general, of lying in the private sector. And that happens in Africa. When we are lying, we have the culture of middlemen lying. And people, they don't have any fear of retribution, like in America, for example. If I do something to you, I'm fearful you might come and kill me. In American society. Or you might leave a review on Airbnb. I'm forced to do the right thing because, number one, everybody has a gun. You may do something to me. But now I think that when we deal here, I'm doing business with somebody. That person's a legit business owner, allegedly. And that person can do, like, I could do whatever you want to me. What can you do? You can't call the police. These people are my friend. You see? So what I feel that is that a lot of diaspora, forget African Americans, let's look at Ugandan Americans here. People who are from here who send the most money back. They have no leverage. And I see these other groups that have leverage. Their diaspora has leverage. So if you do something, they're in a position to punish you somehow. So I think that the only way that these things can work, if it's the African American diaspora, the African diaspora, Ghanaian diaspora, Nigerian diaspora, whoever, Jamaican diaspora, they have to be in a position where people can respect them, that if I screw these people over, I'm going to get punished. But if I integrate with you so far, look at family members. People steal money from each other all the time in these communities. And they're like, oh, it's my brother. It's okay. It's fine. Or in America, somebody will kill you for that. You know how it is. African American from St. Louis or Minneapolis, if you don't pay him back, he gonna come get you. Respect is everything in our community. So when we say that, he scammed me for like $1,000, it's okay. A lot of African Americans, if they were to come here, they're gonna go see that person. There's not gonna be a whole lot of talking, and this is how we think. Like, oh, he did this, okay, we're gonna go look for this guy, and that's what we're trying to mitigate. So what I feel like is, these people have to have some level of independency in their own economies. And then contribute with the economies that didn't see the business in this way. Just like Africans when they come to America. They see things in the way we don't. Which is why they do very well. I was going to Dubai. I was in Dubai when I was talking to you. And I saw, are you familiar with something called matoke?
Oh yeah.
You familiar with matoke? Okay, let me tell you this. I'm going to flying Uganda Airlines to Dubai, and it's the second time I've done this, and I saw all these people bringing boxes just on the cart. The boxes were even taller than me, and they were bringing the boxes into the check-in place, into the security place, going into the check-in.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find out what are their boxes of matoke.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, why are these boxes going to Dubai?
Yeah.
Well, there's a Ugandan diaspora that lives in Dubai that are willing to pay 7 or 8 times the amount for this matoke.
Yeah.
Now, these are Ugandans that are going to sell that there, take orders, and come back. And there's some of these people are making the trips 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And they're paying extra on luggage, but they're making maybe $2,000 or so a trip.
Yeah.
But the reason they can do this is because these people have an independent economy.
Yeah.
And when you have an independent economy, you can make rules and regulations on how people should behave.
Yeah.
When you don't have that, you can't enforce. Like in my company, for example.
Yeah.
There are rules of engagement for you to be able to work with me or for me.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, I will punish you.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with the diaspora is we are not being told to do that. And everybody has to be able to respect you. And the only way that Africans respect you here, in my honest opinion, if you can do that. If you can't do that, you're not gonna get no respect. That's my honest opinion. It can be different from yours.
Yeah, that's a great question. Very thought-provoking and very honest, as you say. There are many issues here, and I can just share, one or two. I've used the word communal. Africans are communalistic, people-oriented, and so on. I guess I'm too much hung up on the past. Our traditions, the traditions that we learned from our ancestors, they did teach us to be that kind of communal where you really took care of everybody else.
Right. You
really took care of everybody else. It was not selfish. It was not the thing of grabbing something, taking advantage of others. No. It had to be with being trustworthy. There's a lot of corruption of that has set in. And I would say, as a result of colonialism and the values that colonialism brought, as a result of the money economy, that's capitalism, individualism has set in. And so people, as you say, they cannot, they are shady, they are untrustworthy, they will lie, they will cheat. These are completely individualistic, selfish kind of activities. And I would never call these types of things, part of the African culture that I have in mind. So maybe I'm hung up on the past, maybe, but I don't want to give up. I will say what we are seeing today, these terrible things that we talk about, and we all agree. For example, and I've heard this many times, Africans from the continent who are abroad, they may be in England, they may be in France, they may be in the US or Canada or Australia. They send money home.
Yes.
Expecting their little brother or their uncle to look for a plot or something. And then only to realize, the money was not used that way. This is not really the kind of communalism, the kind of cultural values that I'm talking about, because they didn't foster exploiting anybody, whether it was your relative or your friend. It was a culture of give and take. It was a culture of hospitality and reciprocity. And I use those concepts here, hospitality and reciprocity. Those are the values. I think there have been disruption of these things. I think it's as a result of westernization. People live in the cities, and we went under colonialism and the money economy, the ideology of individualism, everybody for oneself. You look for advancement for yourself, and people have taken this to another level. In fact, it seems like the Africans, we have imitated the Western ways of everybody for oneself, and the devil take the hindmost. So you exploit even your little brother or your sister who is in England. I would say this is a result of westernization, and more specifically, capitalism. I know this is going to be controversial, but
Sure.
I thrive in controversy. And
Okay.
oh yes, I like to provoke controversies.
Okay.
Yes, the Africans lost their way when they became colonized. Their customs, their systems of belief, their relationships were disrupted by westernization.
Okay.
And so this is one of those. Capitalism, individualism, everybody wants to grab money at the expense of everybody else.
Okay.
It's the same system that enabled some people to sell other people into slavery.
Okay.
Because it's all about making money. You don't care about human beings. You make money. You exploit people. I think the Africans we are talking about here now, who take advantage of you, for example, who are unscrupulous, they're actually following that tradition. Again, let me say this very provocative statement. I think what we are seeing is the effects of westernization in Africa.
Okay.
Westernization distorted the value systems of the Africans.
Yes.
Yeah, that had this principle of hospitality, reciprocity, and really caring for one another. You went to funerals in the neighborhood. You attended funerals for everybody. You attended the weddings. You participated in those things. You did farming together. I grew up in a village, as I told you. The villagers got together to cultivate your farm. The following day, they came to cultivate my farm. The following day, I saw this, I participated in this. Those were the kinds of values.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
In very brief terms, those are the things I would say. But I think we have raised some really powerful issues here, which we could then develop,
For the next time, hopefully, we can get you here.
Yeah.
In August, you'll be here. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And one more thing I want to say is this.
Sure.
Given the problems, the issues you have raised and highlighted, on both on the African side, what we need now is dialogue like this, conversations like this. For example, I think the Africans don't understand African Americans. They think you come from America, you are loaded with money.
Right.
So there needs to be a period of just conversations and getting to know each other for the Africans to know the condition, the plight, the predicament of African Americans and why you are there. They need to know this. I believe in the goodness of human beings generally. If they know what you are going through, they are very likely to change and act differently. But if they are working from a position of ignorance, they think you are American, you have tons of money, that $1,000 doesn't really matter to you. If those are the thoughts they have, they will keep, sneaking around you and doing this and doing. But the education that comes from conversation and dialogue and continuous dialogue like this, we need to take this out into the community and make it part of the life we live in Africa. That's why the African Americans in Arusha want me back for more conversation. You
must connect me there to them so we can go down there also.
And
Professor, this is a great interview. I know we disagree on maybe certain things, but you really have enlightened us. I have your books here, and hopefully we get to meet you in studio, bringing you here to Uganda. Chickens in the Bus, More Thoughts on Cultural Differences.
Yeah.
This was written in 2021, and I believe the other book, Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences, which was written, was it 2005?
Yes, 2005. You got it right.
2005. Okay.
Yeah.
Any last words you would like to say to your future readers? And I'm going to buy both of these books actually myself. Let me order it now. Here, I'm going to order both of these. And I'm going to order the paperbacks here. www.
Period. Lulu. Period. Com.
Lulu.com. Okay.
Yeah. So I've become a bit reluctant.
So I'll tell you what, you send me the Lulu link. I think I'm here on Lulu. It looks like you have to join up with Lulu.
I'll send you the precise place. Yeah, on Lulu.
Okay. All right. We'll put them at the beginning, at the top. I will buy both of your books there. And I really thank you for the captivating dialogue. Also, I have a debate coming with a brother. Hopefully you'll hear it. And it was, did socialism destroy Africa?
I'm a great believer in socialism. Oh, Lord.
Okay.
I wish I could join that debate.
I think I might wait. Shout out to Brother Latani. He was, of course, as historians, I was checking out with George Ayete, who this year passed on by the now. Did you ever meet him?
No, I never did.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer in socialism.
Okay. That would be a good topic. Hopefully we can get that once you come, or we can do a part 2 to that. But I'm a novice in African history, so he was really he had me up against the ropes, Doc. So so I couldn't really respond. But we are going to give that discussion a part 1 very soon.
Okay.
And he's a big historian, so hopefully when you come, you can give us a part 2 to that. And maybe we can get somebody on the other end, a PhD economist who is a capitalist, who could challenge you on those views here in Uganda. So,
why not? Yes. I love controversy.
And I'm betting on you to win. Don't make me look bad. You need to.
I love controversies, yeah. Okay. And in terms of the last word, you asked me to give the last word.
Yes.
I really appreciate your invitation very deeply. I'm a teacher, and my greatest dream is to, share my ideas with the world, and you are facilitating that. I thank you very much for that. My idea and my dream is to, provoke controversy so I can learn from other people, and you do this very well. And so all I can say is I'm very grateful. You are a big channel, let me tell you, you are a big channel. So for me, it's a privilege and honor to appear on this big channel of yours. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Subscribe to Professor Joseph Mbele's YouTube channel. I'll put the link there. He has 717 subscribers. Let's get him to 1,000. He's doing some really great work again. I want to have our platforms, because I'm a person that's into the social media business, but for me, it's very important to bring our intellectuals onto the platform. Every other group does this. The Jews, the whites, they all let their intellectuals develop ideas. And I believe that Kingana is to be in the same light. We need our intellectuals to be able to put our intellectuals out there. It doesn't mean that we agree everything that they have to say, but our intellectuals are our top people that understand the culture and understand the rules of engagement. And that's what I plan to do on this channel. Every other group has their best people leading them. And we need to do the same thing for our intellectuals. I think it's sad that our intellectuals don't have a home to sell their books, or to put their ideas out there when they have done the research and things like this. So, and I'm glad that Professor Mbele was here. I have Dr. Ronald Neal, PhD from Wake Forest, coming here next Wednesday. So again, we are the home of intellectual thought here, and we want to keep it that way. And again, Doc, thank you so much for coming here on such short notice. And guys, see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.